Hey guys, Dusty here. Today I want to give my first impressions review on the new Saucony Endorphin Elite. So far I only have one run on this shoe, but it was a good one. It was a 30k run, and I did a main set of 4x5k. Two of the 5k being at marathon pace, and then the other two 5k was just a little bit faster. And before we get into my initial thoughts, let's go over some of the basic stats on the shoe. So the Endorphin Elite, it actually shares very similar specs to the Endorphin Pro 3, but has a very different feel overall. And the stack height on the Endorphin Elite is 39.5 in the rear, 31.5 in the forefoot for a heel to toe drop of 8 millimeters. My men's size 8.5 weighs in at a super light 7 ounces or 200 grams. The upper on the shoe is very crazy looking. You have these cutouts. You have this band that wraps around your midfoot and actually goes underneath the shoe. You can see it in the cutout in the bottom. In the front of the shoe, you have some mesh. In the back, you have like a knit material. The heel on the shoe is pretty interesting as well. There is no heel counter whatsoever, zero structure. There is this band that wraps around the back, which might help give you a little bit of added support. There's a good sized pad right at the back of the heel. Overall, I would say the Endorphin Elite fits true to size. However, I did have some issues getting a good lockdown before I started my workout. During my warm-up, I could feel my heel sliding in and out ever so slightly. I decided just to keep going ahead with my warm-up, and over the next few minutes that feeling went away, and I could really feel that big cushion pad in the heel. But overall, that feeling went away as well. And overall, by the end of the workout, I felt like the lockdown had improved. All those little issues just kind of went out of my mind, and at least they weren't presenting themselves as bigger issues. So I'll have to put more miles on the shoe and see if the lockdown is an issue or not. Like I might have already mentioned, they do fit true to size. I would say that they are maybe slightly more roomy than some of the other race day options out there. Now we'll move along to the midsole, and this is a brand new midsole to Saucony. They're calling it their Power Run HG foam. And supposedly, according to Saucony, this foam is going to have 95% energy return, which is pretty crazy if that's true. Overall, the feeling of this midsole is a little bit firmer than the Endorphin Pro 3, and this shoe in particular has a pretty aggressive rocker and more specifically a really aggressive toe off. So when I first got my Elites and I put them on, walked around the house, it felt very aggressive at toe off, just kind of like you're falling off a cliff every step I was taking. And then when I got out there on the run, I will say that the feeling went away a little bit, and the rocker actually felt really nice. It felt pretty smooth as well, but we'll get to how the shoe felt a little bit later. And of course, in the midsole is a full length carbon plate, and then if we take a look at the bottom of the shoe, you're getting a decent amount of rubber coverage, although that rubber is a very, very thin, and I doubt it's going to have any sort of good durability, especially when you compare it to a shoe like the Endorphin Pro 3. Another thing I'll mention about this outsole is during my run, it was pouring rain, and the shoulder had a little bit of gravel on it, and some of the turns I took and going uphill, I could feel the shoe slipping a little bit. So in terms of grip on wet pavement and durability of the outsole, not going to be the greatest out there, especially like I already mentioned when you compare it to a shoe like the Endorphin Pro 3. Honestly, I kind of wish they had just taken this outsole and put it on this shoe, but it does a fine job, and I would rank it just the same as like a Vaporfly Next Percent in terms of outsole rating. Okay, so what do I think after my first run in the Endorphin Elite? First of all, I bought this shoe for a marathon I have coming up in about I think 5 weeks from now, and the run I took the Endorphin Elites on was one of my key long runs, and overall it went fantastic. Body was tired going into the workout, legs were a bit heavy, and I was able to hit my paces. I will say running at marathon pace in the shoe felt effortless and super easy. I will say that this shoe does feel better the faster you run in it, whereas a shoe like the Endorphin Pro 3 feels great at all paces. I think the Endorphin Elite really feels the best at that race pace, which is good because it doesn't have probably a super durable outsole, so this isn't going to be a shoe that you're going to want to train in all the time. Overall, I was surprised the ride didn't feel as aggressive as it did when I was just walking around my house. The whole gait cycle felt pretty smooth in this shoe. It does feel a little bit more aggressive than the Endorphin Pro 3. And overall, the cushion felt very protective. The base is quite wide. I'll put some footage up. You can see I have very minimal pronation when I'm foot striking in this shoe. The upper is certainly wild on this shoe, but I will say my socks were totally soaked by the end of this run. And the shoe, I don't think, held any water whatsoever. It stayed light throughout the entire run, which is great. I feel like the Endorphin Elite is really going to come to life and work well when you're running fast at race pace, and when you have a good forward lean and you're really getting the most out of this aggressive rocker and toe off. Another thing I need to mention is the price of the shoe is 350 Canadian or 275 US, and that's totally crazy. I was happy to pay it to get a brand new fancy shoe for my big marathon coming up, but for most runners I bet they would probably do just as well, saving quite a bit more money and going with something like the Endorphin Pro 3. You're going to get much more life out of the shoe. It's going to be better for training. It handles all paces a little bit better, and it's still an awesome, stable, fast feeling race day shoe. But for some of you out there who are looking to squeeze every second out of a race that you can, then yeah, you might absolutely want to try a pair of Endorphin Elites on and see what you think. So I'm going to save my full review for about 6 or 7 weeks from now. I'll put in a couple of more key training sessions as I gear up for my marathon, and then after my marathon I'll let you know how I did and how the shoe worked out for me. I'm really excited to race with this shoe. Hopefully some of those lockdown issues were just breaking the shoe in for the first few minutes type thing, and then hopefully on race day it's not raining and I'm not slipping around on the roads. And if you have any questions about the Endorphin Elite, leave them down below in the comments and I'll be sure to get back to you. Like always, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.